That's right. We're coming to you live from the corner of 6th and Market, beautiful downtown Canton, Ohio. Football still on our mind, Kenny Rhoda.
Yeah, football weather, 18 degrees outside. We could play another game today, but you know what? All the games have been played, and the last one that mattered, the Ohio State Buckeyes won it and claimed their 9th national championship.
Weather doesn't matter when you're playing inside a 72-degree dome, and to help us break down the Buckeyes' big win, Canton's very own Brian Hartline joins the program. Brian, congratulations, young man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for joining us. It's been a long time. I saw you the last time in Canton. We were doing something at the Bubble, and you were in probably on a recruiting trip, which is probably what you're doing right now.
Yeah, not quite, but I'll hit the road for this coming week on Sunday. So right now we got a quick chance to catch our breath, but that recruiting on the road will start next week.
Brian, this is Kenny. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations. As you've been able to maybe step away for a couple of days now after the whirlwind 4-game redemption tour or whatever you want to call it. When you look back on it, Brian, what stands out as to why this team went from that loss at home to Michigan to running the table, beating top teams handily, and winning the title?
That's probably the million-dollar question, and I think that, when we get back together as a staff, that's probably something we'll dive into and try to identify. At this point, I can't identify that. I think at the end of the day, we had some guys that, felt like our backs were against the wall, and we had some seniors and guys that wanted to accomplish a goal, and it was kind of now or never. And sometimes when you're put in those situations, the best version of yourself comes out. And, in hindsight, that's a big part of it. But the question why, I can't answer that quite yet. But really proud of the guys and obviously ended the way you wanted to.
When you look back on it, somebody asked me this, and I said, you know what? I'm going to ask media members that cover the team, and if we get any coaches on, I'm going to ask this question.
Yep.
Does this team win the title if you don't lose that game to Michigan? Did it have that much of an impact, or do you think even with that loss you guys could have still won it, or did this put you over the top for whatever reason?
Well, I don't know if it was just that. It wasn't just really that game. I mean, you lose the week before, you're kind of in the same spot, right? I mean, it wasn't about it being the last game. It was just about putting ourselves in a spot with 2 losses. And, we had nowhere to go. So there's some real conversations about, how we bounce back from here and what's it going to require. And obviously the guys were committed to get that done.
Brian Hartline is our guest, outstanding assistant coach with the Ohio State Buckeyes, wide receivers coach. And you talk about wide receiver, JT. You were a wide receiver. You got to be loving what Brian's doing with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I ran against a wind dial. I was so slow, there was no chance you'd play it at any level like that. But, Brian, let's talk about recruiting. Let's talk about the Olaves, the Jackson Smith and Jigbas, the Emeka Abukas, what you did with Marvin Harrison Jr., and now all of a sudden it seems as though we forget all about him because you've got this freshman there at Ohio State in Jeremiah Smith. When you first saw him, did you have any idea that he was going to be the beast that we've seen at number 4 playing for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was obviously a pretty good chance he could accomplish whatever he wanted to accomplish at Ohio State. But to say that, the how readily he was the first year and being a freshman, no one can ever predict that besides him. So I don't really like to put guys in categories and hypotheticals and what it could be and should be. But I'm very proud of him. I know he put a lot of stress on himself and a lot of expectations on himself, and he's one heck of a young man.
Brian, you played the position at the Ohio State. What do you remember about your freshman year, and then compare that, if you will, to what he was able to accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I was coming off a leg injury in high school, and I already thought I was better than everybody that was there. So, but I redshirted as a freshman and, played my role my first year. And so, yeah, I mean, the way he's run about his business is second to none. The one person you left off your list as you were naming all the guys was Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Was probably, one of the guys that probably had the most impact as a freshman out of the group of guys I've had. And, he's just, again, he's a great player, an even better young man. And that's really the story on Jeremiah. It's not about what you see on Saturdays, it's how he operates, through the week.
Brian, I'm great friends with Rennie Wilson. He coached you at GlenOak. Scott Garcia, I just got off the phone with, and it was funny because I was asking him, I said, we were talking to Beanie Wells last week, and we were talking about an overtime game that your brother was the quarterback at GlenOak, and he beats Beanie Wells in an overtime game at Fawcett Stadium. You're gone by then, but you also mentioned the fact that you redshirted your freshman year due to a leg injury. And I was talking to Scotty, and he told me this story, and I thought it was hysterical. He says it was the first game of the season. You break your leg on a punt return?
Punt return, yep.
Dustin Fox is on the sidelines, calls Jim Tressel and tells him that you broke your leg. What went through your mind when you found out?
Oh, I saw it on the field, so I knew what had happened. But, no, I came back that spring and won some state championships in track, and that's kind of, when you're down and out, there's nowhere to go but up. So you just get back to the grind and you just get real with yourself. And I was just bummed that I wasn't able to finish the season with, my teammates and my brother and all those kind of things, those opportunities to create memories. But God's got a better plan than we do, and you got to trust in the plan.
Hey, what has your brother been up to? I haven't seen Mike in forever.
So Mike just got out of, he's been down in Coastal. He is now going back to UK to be an assistant coach.
Nice.
All right.
Outstanding. Yep. Good for him. Good for you, too. Co-offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, one of the top recruiters in the country. Does the school sell itself, Brian? Because we hear, all the accolades, and you deserve all of them. Don't get me wrong, okay? You deserve them. But does the school sell itself? And if it doesn't, what do you add as the recruiter to keep this pipeline from whatever high school through Ohio State to the NFL?
Well, my job isn't to make things up. I just make sure that the information is articulated to the right way to the potential, future athletes. To me, that's the best part about Ohio State. I don't have to fabricate. I don't have to make it bigger than it really is. I just make sure they fully understand who we are and how we operate and who I am and how I operate. And frankly, in my opinion, I think the proof's in the pudding. And if it's something you're looking for, if you want to play in the NFL, you know where to find us, and I think we've done a pretty good job pushing these guys, challenging them, and then ultimately helping them achieve their dreams.
How do you operate? As a wide receiver coach, an assistant offensive coordinator, I go back into when you played at Ohio State. Daryl Hazel, I believe, was your wide receiver coach. I played against him in college. He was at Muskingum. I was at
Did he win? Did he win at Muskingum or what?
Not when we played him. We beat him there. But they were picked pretty high to win. And the thing is, he ends up becoming a head coach at Kent State. Then again, I believe at Purdue. What do you take from him as a coach? And do you take anything that away from the way he coached you and the way you coach now?
Well, I would just say that, yes, Coach Hazel is a dear friend, and I've stayed in contact with him. He's living just above Cincinnati. Now, that being said, all the coaches I've kind of experienced and been a part of and been around my entire life has made a huge impact on me. So my goal getting back into coaching was just trying to make that same impact on young men that those coaches have had on me. And frankly, I think a lot of the things I teach, in my mind, were based off of what Coach Hazel taught me. But come to find out, I guess I've added to that, and it has grown much more than I have thought. But no, Coach Hazel was a major, major influence on me as a player, and then now me as a coach.
We also have ties to your former coach at The Ohio State University, Jim Tressel. He's a fraternity brother of ours from Baldwin Wallace. So we know Coach Tressel very well. And I said this the other day, Brian, as we look back to like 2000, right? You guys win 3 national championships. You're 3-3. You've played for 6 since Tress took over, basically. And I'm a huge fan of Jim's because I think he brought Ohio State football back to prominence, and Urban continued, and now Ryan Day has continued that march to the top. But as you look back on playing for Tress, you mentioned what Daryl Hazel gave to you as a coach. What did Jim Tressel mean to you, and what stories or lessons that you learned from him maybe do you use as a coach today as well?
Yeah, huge, obviously, respect for Coach Tress. Tress is around a lot, so I try to pick his brain as much as I can now. Frankly, thinking back, I keep saying that, but I wish I could be in his meetings. I wish I could have been a coach on the wall, listening to him operate with his staff and how he, game planned and how he, motivated and inspired the team. I would have loved that opportunity to see what it was like on the inside with Coach Tress. Obviously, the way he commanded the team, the way he inspired the team, the way he supported and looked after the players has really resonated with me. And really, it all comes down to the athlete. It's all about the player, all about the player. And he operates that way to this day. And I've never, missed that fact through my process.
It's amazing, too, because was coaching always in the cards for you after your playing days?
No. People were telling me I was going to be a coach. I thought they were crazy.
Right.
To say they knew a lot more than I did at that point. So
because 2009 you're drafted by the Miami Dolphins. Marcus Freeman gets drafted that year as well. Now you're coaching against him in the national championship game this past Monday. You look across the field. You give him a little wink. What'd you do?
Yeah, I had to give him a little fist bump. So I do not talk to coaches before games. I just feel like they're literally the enemy, and they're trying to ruin my life and ruin my family's life. So
I love it.
I don't play games before games. But he was the one coach that I confidently went up to and gave some knuckles and got a chance to see him. Same with James. Laurinaitis went and saw him, and Jim was on the Coach Tressel was on the field too. So It was a pretty special experience.
All right, so take us through this magical run, Brian Hartline, because you get in even when you lose to Michigan at home, right? And I'm looking at the road ahead. And I remember saying this on the Kenny and JT show. I said, if the Buckeyes win this, because I was one of those people saying, boy, Ryan Day's got to figure this thing out against Michigan, and he better do something in the playoffs, so I'm guilty, okay? But I said, if he can run the table, ain't no way he, should be fired. They should lock him up for a number of years, because if you beat in succession, you beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Georgia or Notre Dame, that's going to be one of the most historic runs in college football history. So kind of walk us through, if you will, with the cliff notes of each game, and then when you look back on it, how historic was this?
Well, I think it's just anytime you come off a loss, you just want to make sure you get back on track. And so we felt like, obviously all hands on deck, and we had to make sure we played to the strengths of our team, and we go get that win at home versus Tennessee, then we're going to be back and running, back and rolling. So, obviously full, push ahead to make sure that we got that done. Once we did, we felt like the confidence was coming back. Obviously we felt like, we were doing a really good job of putting our guys in good position to make plays and build confidence, and the rest was kind of history. I mean, you go from Tennessee, then you have Oregon up next, and then to go out to the West Coast and see Oregon in the West Coast, then to go down to Texas, and take it from Texas, and then to go over to Atlanta and beat a great Notre Dame team was just a really historic run. A lot of credit, obviously, to the coaching staff and these players, and they really did a great job buying in and week out, and understanding the previous week did not help you the next week. So we had to start from scratch every week and put our best foot forward, and we did that at a high level.
Maybe the greatest run of all time, or at least in our lifetime, to a championship. And Ohio State got it done, and Brian Hartline, a huge part of that, and we always appreciate it, especially when our very own ends up being at the top level. And we talk about being at GlenOak. We talk about being a Canton guy. I've got a couple of quick, lighthearted questions for you, Brian Hartline.
Oh, yeah.
When you come home, what's the first stop?
My parents' house.
You go to see the parents?
Yes.
What about a restaurant? What about a club or anything? Anything like that? Pizza? Anything that comes to mind that you can't wait to get home for?
Yeah, probably pizza oven.
See, there it is.
Pizza oven, yeah.
All right. Second question, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick. Where were you when that golf cart wrecked after the game on Monday night? Where were you?
Holy cow! When I saw that, I was dying laughing. Holy smokes! I couldn't get over Will's face when they hit that wall, and then I can only imagine what Coach Day was thinking. I was dying laughing, but I was to this day I still crack up when I watch that video.
I saw it, and I'm like, damn, did he get whiplash or what, man? Because he joked the next day.
Smoked.
Yeah.
She broke the axle when she hit the wall.
Right. And then we come to find out, I guess she had been driving them around, from stop to stop, and she was kind of like Mario Andretti or something on the field going from place to place, and then boom, she hit the wall, and you're right, that axle broke, and it just kind of tilted down.
I'm like, the axle was fine before you hit the wall. You smacked that wall and snapped that thing.
Wow, that was crazy, and it just adds to the storyline from the first playoff game through the national championship game and beating Notre Dame, two of the most iconic college football teams going head to head for the first ever national championship in a 12-team playoff. And, Brian, you've been there since 2017. How was the approach to this title run, knowing it was a 12-team versus when you guys, and I know it was the pandemic year, but, it was the shorter version, the 4-team version of a playoff run when you guys lost to Alabama in the championship game?
Well, there's the complete opposite. I mean, we were very aware of the amount of games it would take to accomplish our goal. So you had to be smart on, the practice style and making sure, guys' rep counts weren't too high, and just, again, it's an NFL model. I mean, I know it's the first year and it's hard for people to understand, but, at the end of the day, there's nothing closer than what the NFL does. So we had to, do some research and kind of reach out and see if there's different things that they do in that league. And we tried to implement some of that. But, at the end of the day, the college football, you're going to win every game, especially at Ohio State. But there was definitely some thought process when it comes to, the wear and tear on bodies, taking care of bodies, and the way you practice.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at this. Somebody posted a statistic, Brian Hartline, Selection Sunday rankings. Oregon, number 1, you beat them. Georgia, number 2, you didn't have to play them. But Texas, number 3, you beat them. Penn State, number 4, you beat them. Notre Dame, number 5, you beat them. You were 6 in the final selection rankings. Tennessee was 7, you beat them. And Indiana, you beat them. They were number 8. That's 6 teams in the Selection Sunday final rankings that Ohio State either beat in the playoffs or during the regular season. Has that sunk in? What you guys accomplished?
Not really, but there is no question it is by far the best run that a college football team has ever done, in history. And I'm not saying it won't happen again. It could, but there is no question at this point that is the most historical run that's ever happened.
It's an incredible run, and we're so happy and so proud for you and all of Buckeye Nation. Brian Hartline, the last question that I have is on everyone's mind right now, and it has to do with the NIL and the transfer portal. It may be too big of a question to ask right now, but do you believe it'll be regulated anytime soon?
Well, it just needs to be a sustainable model. At the end of the day, I think it's excellent for these young men and their families being able to get compensation and all that. I think that's awesome. It just needs to make sure that it's sustainable, like Nick Saban said, publicly, and that's my biggest thing. I think that it can definitely be cleaned up and kind of can have some better guardrails on it, but the opportunities these young men deserve are fully documented, and I'm really, really happy with how well my guys, even in the receiver room, have been able to move forward.
On a Saturday in the fall, would you rather be on the field at the Horseshoe, or would you rather be on stage with me at the Riverwatch?
On the field.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
He's a coach, man.
Well, you were on that stage.
I know.
He had a blast up there.
He's getting a ring. You giving me a ring? No, you're not. He gets a ring for winning that thing on the field.
Brian, tell him how much fun it is on that stage, though. It's a blast, isn't it?
It can be, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel too much like a critic instead of being a part of the process of helping. So that's kind of why I steered away from the media side of things, to be frank.
Listen, man, I get that crowd fired up for you guys. They get ready to go on Buckeye Saturdays.
I know that. I ain't no doubt on that.
Yeah, he gets them all lubed up to walk in that stadium over there to cheer for. Hey, I was there for the Tennessee game, froze my ass off, but it was worth all $300 I spent, Brian Hartline, for that ticket, man. It was a fun thing to watch, and the first touchdown to Jeremiah came right towards me as I was on the Tennessee sideline near that end zone, and I thought he was good when I watched him on TV. Then I saw him in person, Brian, and that dude is as good as I've ever seen in a college freshman. And if he were able to come out in the NFL draft today, I'd take him over Travis Hunter or anybody in this draft right now.
Yeah, he's a great individual, and I think I can't minimize that. I know he's had a great football season, statistically on the field, but the makeup of which he was in between his ears and how he operates and how he carries himself is really what allows him to unlock anything he's potentially able to do. So he's a great young man.
Here's what told me a lot about him was the one game where he didn't have the stats, but to say he didn't impact the game, I thought was idiotic when he only had one catch for 3 yards against Texas, right? Because the attention that was paid to him opened it up for Tate and Ibuka and G. Scott and all of those guys. And the fact that after the game, you didn't hear him bitch, moan, cry, say anything negative about that, that tells me a lot about an individual right there, Brian.
Oh, yeah, not shocked. He just wants to win. He wants to help every chance he can. Obviously, he wants to be a big part of it and helped move the football, but he understood, why it kind of just transpired that way. It wasn't the case that we wanted it obviously to happen, but he didn't care. He just wanted to win football games.
All right, so the last pass play to wrap it up against Notre Dame, as the offensive coordinator going through that, did you know you guys were saving that for a situation like that? And when the play call went in, what were you thinking as it's going in and then as it's executed?
Well, we weren't saving it. It was just more the opportunity presented itself. And so anytime we get an opportunity to put our guys in the right spots, it's their job to kind of make the play, and the rest was history. So not shocked. Opportunity presented itself, and JJ killed it.
Okay, yeah, no doubt. Will's throw was fantastic.
See the way Spray picked up that blitz in the internal?
Yep.
I mean, unreal.
Yeah.
The pass protection was off the charts.
Well, and I mentioned, we can talk about all the skill guys. Donovan Jackson might be my MVP based on what I saw when he moved out to left tackle, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about? The guy was potentially a high draft pick as a guard, then someone goes down, he moves to tackle, and you never hear a problem, from the moment he moves out there. So we would not be where we were today if it wasn't for Donovan Jackson.
Yeah. Last thing, and we'll let you go on this. JT mentioned the NIL stuff. Today we're hearing rumblings, and I was worrying about this, that other schools are going to try and get Jeremiah Smith away from you guys, get Carnell Tate away from you guys by offering NIL dollars. How do you handle that as a coach, knowing that this is legal now and you're going to have to deal with this year in and year out? Yeah,
I mean, that's just the opportunity that presents itself. So, but nothing stronger than Buckeye Nation. We have a great brotherhood here. We got a great support system in place, and I think we're very prideful of the way we take care of our athletes and look after our athletes. So it's a part of the process. It is what it is, but I don't have a whole lot of concerns. I know what kind of special situation we have here.
Yeah,
champion right there.
Right there, absolutely. Offensive coordinator, top recruiter in the country, Brian Hartline. All his offense did this year, right? Emeka Egbuka, 1,000 yards. Jeremiah Smith, 1,300 yards. Travion Henderson, 1,000 yards. Quinshawn Judkins, 4 guys with 1,000 yards on offense, Brian Hartline. I mean, you talk about weapons, and that's why it didn't matter who got the ball, right? Any one of those guys could win you a game, and they all did throughout this run, didn't they?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the perk of being at Ohio State and the challenges of going to practice and competing against your peers day in and day out. That makes you and brings out the best in you when you choose to sign yourself up for something like that.
We are so proud and happy for you and the entire Buckeye Nation and the players and the coaches. A job well done, Brian Hartline, and thanks for coming back home, even if it's through the radio airwaves here at WHBC, and spending some time with us and sharing the journey and what it was like.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys reaching out, and appreciate you guys' support, as always.
All right, there is Brian Hartline.